Casino employees of Reddit, what is the worst you have ever seen someone handle a loss? A guy drove off the parking deck at the casino I worked for. A gentleman at a poker table in the 5-seat unzipped his pants and urinated on the dealer. I never caught the signal the dealer used, but it was effective, as all the guys who normally collect boxes from the tables show up out of nowhere and removed him from the table like they were taking out the trash. Well, they were. Table broke up so they could clean. Dealer showered and put on a new uniform, and I saw her on the floor again a few hours later. What a frickin' professional. I work in IT for a casino and just had to replace a phone that was ripped off the wall and thrown at one of our pit bosses over a bad loss. Dealer for 10 years. Third day dealing. Fresh out of dealer school, I am dealing Pai Gao tiles. Asian domino game. Try to get pairs and tiles to add up as close to 9 as possible on a $25 minimum game. Guy bets $25 to $75 for a good 2 hours. He then slides his whole stack on one hand for 3k. For those who know the game, he gets Team Daibo. I pull Ji-Jun. For those who do not know the game, it's like he got pocket kings and I got pocket aces. Or he pulled a 20 in blackjack and I just pulled 11 cards to make 21. The odds are astronomical. It's the only hand that beats him. He slams his fist on the table swearing in Chinese. Chips fly everywhere and begins to shove his finger down his throat. He self-induces vomit all over my game. Close the table and pit down for cleanup. Third day dealing. Money benefits are great though. Highly recommend the industry. Made 30-40 an hour. Table games dealer here. I work at a casino in New Zealand. Had a Thai woman a few months ago betting 300k a hand. She lost 12 million at my table in less than an hour. The casino then paid for her private charter jet to Melbourne and back. $70,000 so she could get more money. Not exactly sure why she had to go to Melbourne to get more money, but I was doing a 16-hour shift and she came back to my table after her trip and dropped another 15 million. Haven't had anyone close to spending that much money ever. She would also flash herself at dealers for luck and requested only young white dealers. Almost all baccarat dealers at my casino are Asian, so I had to deal to her every night for 10 days. Doesn't sound like her flashes were good luck if she lost 27 million. I actually did work in a casino in Las Vegas a few years back, in VIP services. One of our high rollers, who visited frequently, had a very bad gambling problem that his wife was divorcing him over. He lost everything at the tables and couldn't even afford his plane ticket back home. He threatened go to the roof of the hotel and throw himself off. The casino felt so sorry for him. We ended up buying a ticket back home for him. Never heard from him again after that. Former table dealer here. I've had drunk guys tell me I'm the worst dealer ever. I suck, etc. I would just reply have a nice day. The other people at the table were generally on my side. I've high rollers slam the table with their fist or not react at all to losing thousands. The worst and the saddest one that sticks in my mind is a guy who was around $2,000 down on blackjack. He was nice. He was tipping pretty well. I was rooting for him, as I tended to do. I knocked his tens for good luck. Then he lost a big one and just yelled frick so loud that the entire casino must have heard it. It was the kind of desperation in his voice and everything about him that told me he could not afford to lose as much as he just lost. He went to the ATM, and I rotated to another table. It was crap like that. The goddamn smoke in my face. Sleep deprivation from the late nights that led me to get out of there. A lot of other unpleasant moments too, but they all blur together. Money was nice, but it wasn't for me. Was a waitress in casino establishment 10 years ago. Suicides were not common there, but they did happen. Saddest was an Asian woman who hung herself in the toilets. She lost 20k or so from memory and was not a high roller type. 3-4 days later her car was to be towed from the underground car park. Sadly she had left her 2 fluffy dogs in there and nobody knew. Poor things were dead. The establishment then put on parking patrol officers who checked cars every few hours. They would find alive dogs and kids in there far too often. I quit after 6 months as was tired of watching miserable zombies. Worked as a security guard on night shift. The biggest losers are in a fantasy land where they don't even notice. Never actually saw addicts get worried about the future. Had a guy jump off the parking garage and die. Had another shoot his wife's lover in the garage and kill him before killing himself. Priorities. One guy was so angry at his losses that he took 200 quarters, cut them in half, taped one side, and proceeded to put them in various slot machines. Once they entered the machine, it would jam it up. Sounds like a lot of work when he could have just used washers or a cork gun or something. I used to be a casino host on cruise ships casinos. Seen many people lose their crap, but there is one woman that I'll never forget. She was gambling a lot. Towards the end of the cruise I would find her on the slot. She was crying and playing. I asked her what's wrong and she said I cannot afford to play anymore. This is all on my credit card. Talking, playing, crying at the same time. I banned her from the casino but it was already too late. I also heard stories from colleagues that used to work for a Asian cruise company that they always would keep one lifeboat half lowered because Chinese people would jump overboard after losing all of their money. You should not be able to gamble with credit. Worked in the cage before becoming a dealer. Saddest thing I used to commonly see is people getting cash advances of $15 and paying a $7.99 fee to do it. It was $7.99 to get up to $100, with $15 being the minimum. They would pay a 50% vig to piddle away $15. I guess they thought that big jackpot was just around the corner. Sad. I was security at a casino for a few years. Saddest story for me was this older gentleman, let's call him Tom for privacy's sake. Tom would frequent the casino every day, spending anywhere from $200 to $300. I had striked up lots of conversations with him because he was a regular and he was genuinely kind person who I enjoyed seeing. One day Tom comes in and I can tell he is upset. I don't make anything of it, but after seeing the guy for a few years almost every day, that day he looked really off, so a couple hours go by and I track him down and ask how's the day going? Any big wins? Just general chit chat. He starts sobbing, tears running down his face. His wife had passed away from sudden cardiac death is what I believe he called it, the night before, and he was devastated. We talked for quite a while. I tried comforting him while he played the machines. I had noticed he was betting extremely large, $200 to $300 per spin on the slot machine. I knew that was a lot for him, but I didn't say anything because it's not my business and I was sure it's a coping mechanism for him at the moment, doing something he loved when he just lost the love of his life. Hours later I see him heading out the door. I run up to him, catch him and wish him all the best and that I'll see him soon. He smiled, said thanks for the chat and thank you for the condolences and left. He booked a room in our hotel and killed himself that night. A little while later I find out through some other staff who were sort of friends of his family that he had spent all of his money, every dime that evening, spinning high limit on the machines. I'm assuming because he wanted a little enjoyment before he took his life. Still makes me upset I didn't invite him over or do anything else because I knew he was in pain. This lady with a serious gambling problem was asked to leave as she'd been in the building for over her limit. As a protest, she peed her pants and dripped it into the machine she was at and refused to stand up or walk out. Had to be dragged with pee running down her legs, dripping onto the carpet, down an escalator and onto the street. A classy gal she is. Work casino M's and security. Drove a car into the casino wall, not the doors, the wall. The driver had a traumatic brain injury and luckily didn't injure anyone else. Left the casino, got drunk high, drove through someone's house and killed them. Punch a machine and break that giant touch screen? Those are $5,000 to replace. That could make you a felon. People OD in the bathrooms. A lot. People get so desperate they will wander up and down the aisles looking for pennies left on the machines. Haven't been in the gaming biz since the 1990s. But I've seen everything from tantrums on the floor to attacks on workers. The worst one though was some moron right out of prison with his homies lost his money on the blackjack table, took it personally, went out to his car, waited for the dealer to get off work, followed him, and then beat the living crap out of him when he stopped for gas. My friend just started at the new Catskill Resort Worldwide Casino and has already said 2 people have been kicked out for freaking on the casino floor, and 1 guy got naked in the bathroom and started washing his clothes. They have been open 2 weeks. Not a casino employee, but just the other day my father-in-law Security watched an elderly lady lose everything at a poker table and then go around and steal a couple people's purses, wallets. When they confronted her and asked for it, she wouldn't give it to them because they weren't the police. When the police arrived, she still wouldn't give them her ID or even her name, saying they couldn't arrest her if they didn't know who she was. Needless to say, they arrested her anyways. The last thing the cop asked her was, "Are you at least going to cooperate and walk out with us to the car? Or are you going to do it the hard way?" They had to carry her out and she was kicking the windows in the back of the car the entire time. I was a security guard at a Native American casino for just under 2 years. I worked the graveyard shift the entire time before I had to leave for my own mental health due to how depressing this job could be. A few of the things I saw just in the category of losses, not violence, abuse, drugs, and prostitution, all depressing in their own way, were as follows. Elderly people who would spend their entire social security checks in one night and be forced to use food banks for the remainder of the month. Many couples getting into fights, sometimes physical, over the other giving them bad luck. Anyone who would win a lot in the first 20 minutes they were there then chasing losses after they gave it back to the house, often emptying their entire savings accounts. Lots every month losing their entire paycheck, then savings, then taking out cash advances. That of course could be done in-house, attempting to win back their lost paycheck. The worst one I ever saw was a known local business owner losing what he called over half my life's savings in under 8 hours at $2,000 a hand on a blackjack table, then attempting to strangle the dealer. I had to tackle him and put him in handcuffs. He left the property in a sheriff's car and attempted to enter the building 3 times in the next 2 weeks with intent to kill the bee. Moral of the story: gamble, and if you must be very careful, gambling addiction is a serious issue. Not an employee but my mum's friend won a slot machine jackpot. Security had to swoop in and save her because she was a very casual gambler and would use like 5 coins and leave. But that night on one of her first coins she won the jackpot. The people around her were gambling addicts and some of them had been working that machine for hours before and felt it should have been their win. So they tried to attack her for the money, but she did get it. This wouldn't have been a big win either because it was a small place, but scary stuff. Casino zombies are aggressive and territorial. They worked for that jackpot and some bee came and stole it. I sat next to a guy. He drove a Pepsi truck. He said his mom died and left him $30,000. He'd never seen this much money before, so he thought he could turn it into $100,000. We're at the blackjack table. He's getting wasted and crying inconsistently BC of his mom, talking about her dying. The cocktail waitresses are cock-teasing him the whole night and he tips them $25 every drink. In 2 hours he loses everything. He has this look of nervousness on his face and said his wife is going to kill him if she finds out about this. BC, they have 4 kids and wanted to buy a house. He walked out. 10 minutes later I go to my car and see that he got a DUI. In 24 hours, his mom died. He gets a ton of money, loses it all, will probably get divorced, gets a DUI, and is sitting in the back of a cop car with blue balls from the cocktail waitresses. Some people aren't too smart. He probably heard of the FedEx executive who turned $30K into $100K in a weekend to keep the company afloat. Guy jumped from the 4th story of the parking garage. Note in his car stating that he lost everything. Savings, retirement, college funds, all of it. I watched my uncle lose everything at a blackjack table, so he proceeded to the bathroom, came out with his pants off and throw them on the table and say, "Pants please." The dealer said, "We can't take your pants, sir." He said, "Why not? You've took everything else." Needless to say, he was escorted out of the casino very upset. He has a point. Have worked in casinos for nearly a decade and the saddest ones are the players who lose and show no aggression or sadness at all. I had a player who was down $1 million at the end of a night of roulette and he had a completely vacant, 1,000-yard stare look on his face as he quietly left. Not an employee but my girlfriend and I were at a local casino for dinner on Saturday, so we decided to take a lap around the playing floor afterwards. We are walking by the blackjack tables and notice a small crowd around a guy who had a pile of chips in front of him. After it's clear he lost it all to the dealer, he starts screaming that he couldn't lose and begins to slam his head into the table. Ends up leaving in handcuffs. Usually the casino just throws these guys in a cooling tank and lets them go. Frustration is understandable. They then banned them. Trying to steal from the casino is a different case. My uncle worked at a casino for years. He had a lot of horror stories, but the worst by far was this guy who lost a large sum of money playing cards. The second he lost, he pulled a gun out and shot himself right there at the table. I've had a few patrons lose a ton and never come back, only to find out later they drove their car into a tree or put a shotgun in their mouth. I do have a good story about the worst I saw someone handle a win. This older gentleman was a regular and a total butt, never tipped, never smiled or said hello, and was always in a foul mood. I was watching him play a 50-cent machine one night when he hit 3 jackpot symbols and won 5 grand. I went up to him and congratulated him, and I'll never forget the bemused look on his face when the machine hits a single payout of over $1,200. The machine locks up and won't spin again until an attendant resets it. He just kept hitting the button in vain, trying to keep playing like a child whose toy stopped working. When I told him that the machine was not going to spin until we paid him his hand pay, his only words were, "Can I play this one?" and motioned to the machine next to his. I told him that he could, and he moved over and went straight back into his zombie trance. When we brought his jackpot winnings to him, he huffed and puffed because we asked him to stop playing for a minute while we counted out his $5,000. It's like the money didn't even matter. Working at a casino can be a lot of fun, but the worst thing about it is the fact that you know you're a drug dealer, and your whole job is to make sure people keep taking your product. Had a roulette spinner tell me that one time a woman came in and gave the woman a check to cash out and announced, "Alright, time for me to win my rent money for the month." The dealer handed her the check back and said, "Ma'am, we are not accepting your money in this hotel. Take this check and go pay part of your rent with it and work to pay the rest. This is supposed to be a place of fun, not where you risk your life." Sounds like a decent lady. Good on her for sending them away. I wasn't working at the time, but rather playing poker when a guy went super tilt after a bad hand. Anyway, he dove onto the table and thrashed around, scattering the cards and throwing everyone's chip stacks all over the place before security wrestled him out. It took a good 30+ minutes to sort everything out. That's also the day we all came to respect just how powerful casino surveillance cameras are. They were able to locate and replace every single chip exactly to where it was before his tantrum. Forget casinos. I worked at a hole-in-the-wall liquor store. Well, it was more like a scratch-off lottery store that sold liquor. Can't tell you how many times people would spend all their rent money, car payment, and grocery money on scratch-offs. They'd come back in with their kids crying, begging me for their money back after spending like $1K every day for a week. "Lady, I just work here. Sorry." Also, one guy bought a ticket when I was trying to close and said for the favor that he'd split it with me if he won. Scratches it off to find it's an $80K winner. Immediately tells me he was just kidding about splitting it with me. Turns out he read it wrong because he didn't scratch it off all the way. I like to think it was a winner and got changed his mind when the guy was a douche. Nothing like sweet, immediate, justified karma. You have been visited by the party pug. He just wants you to celebrate with him. Comment woohoo to celebrate with the party pug. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.